Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. Never underestimate the damage someone can do when they think they hold all the cards. Today in the rLounge, don't mess with the wrong people, or you might find yourself banned from a Walmart you never worked at. Up first, we expose people for who they truly are. Am I the a-hole? Hosted a special dinner party 2 weeks before a friend's wedding to drop a bomb, and the groom called off the wedding. Buckle in and keep all hands and judgmental opinions inside until the end. Backstory. I had a BFF that I suspected was not a good friend. I never really had actual reasons for suspecting that she wasn't. It was solely an instinct, a gut feeling if you will. Hindsight is 20/20, and I should have listened to my gut. Anyway, let's call this friend and her fiancé Cindy and Paul. I met Cindy in school approximately 5 years before the crap storm. We quickly became party friends, the kind you only party with. She was fun and always seemed to be looking for the next guy regardless of her relationship status, which I found to be distasteful, but I minded my business and didn't consider us to be close friends. Eventually we grew closer. She'd come over to my house and hang out at family gatherings. She always seemed to copy my fashion, makeup, gestures, and sometimes even hair color. She'd ask to wear my clothes or have me do her makeup similar to mine. I thought nothing of it despite other friends telling me they found her weird as she seemed to want to behave, look, and do as I did. I thought it was a bit odd at times, but didn't feel threatened or bothered by any of that. When Cindy and I met, she was married, and I was in a serious cohabitating relationship with a man I'll call Simon. Cindy cheated on her husband, with whom I later found out to be her cousin's husband, and she moved the stolen husband in. Probably the same day, I don't know. Despite having been friends for so long, I later learned she led an entirely different life that I had no idea about, and would have never allowed her close to my family if I knew about it. Anyway, the stolen husband relationship didn't last long because they both cheated on each other. Meanwhile, Simon and I are living our best lives and going on 5 years strong. But suddenly, things changed for reasons unbeknownst to me, and we broke up. We weren't on bad terms, but we weren't on talking terms. It was more of an I'll avoid you, but I'll be civil if I see you. Fast forward a year and a half, and many men in Cindy's life later, I was in a relationship that quickly became serious. I wasn't surprised that our relationship was moving fast. After all, he was my first love, my high school sweetheart, whom I had broken up with because I went off to college. Side note, he and I have been happily married since, and have made a wonderful life together. He also supported me while I moved in the shadows despite not agreeing with what I was doing. The call. Cindy was on the prowl for a new boo, and at a gathering, Cindy met one of my husband's friends, Paul. Of course, she sank her teeth into him immediately. Cindy moved at lightning speed with these guys, immediately moving them in and wedding planning even when she hadn't been proposed to. OMG, her obsession with having a wedding was insane. Paul quickly finds himself engaged to Cindy, a couple of months into the relationship. Yes, a couple of months. Paul would openly and loudly say that he has never asked, never gave her a ring. Yes, she bought herself a ring and paying for the wedding. She asked me to be her maid of honor, and I accepted. 1 month into the dumpster fire wedding planning, Cindy begins to complain that Paul was working overtime and wasn't meeting her needs in the you-know-what department because he was always tired. We went out a few times and she left with random guys while I went home to the love of my life. Cindy lied to Paul, telling him she was with me or stayed over. She never stayed at my place. I'm too grown for slumber parties. We don't do that over her. No, ma'am. I found out she was using me to lie to Paul, so I confronted her about it and told her how my husband and I felt about knowing she's cheating on a guy we are friends with, and her wedding is 1 month away. She said she'd stop and make things right with Paul. Then I get the call from my ex Simon. He says he couldn't deal with the guilt anymore and needed to confess that he cheated on me with Cindy toward the end of our relationship. Said he needed to tell me not just out of guilt, but that he hated to see how I was still being lied to by Cindy. Wasn't a problem when he was lying to me, though. Simon was likely confessing to make his way back into my life, but trying to get on my good graces. Hell nah. Simon tells me Cindy and he started to text when we began to have issues. She would advise him to leave me because he deserved better. They met at bars a couple of times and hooked up. They recently hooked up again. Cindy told him that she was getting married and I was the maid of honor. Simon told her to come clean if she planned on continuing to be my friend. They argued over it, and he warned her that he'd tell me everything if she didn't. The nitty-gritty. I contemplated whether I should move in with the shadows or confront her about her cheating and betrayal. Let me be clear. Although finding out I was betrayed not just by a partner, but also by a close friend felt horrible, even though I had moved on. However, I was not angry or fighting over a man. I felt stupid, betrayed, fooled, and flat out disrespected by my so-called best friend who dared to make me her maid of honor after betraying me. At least Simon had the slight decency to exit my life after his betrayal. I was sure as hell pissed because where do you find the audacity? Like my friend Charlotte always says, absolutely not. So I consulted a friend, who is now my best friend, and we agreed I should give Cindy a chance to confess on her own by hinting that I know about the cheating. After numerous hints, like me telling her Simon confessed he cheated with a friend while we were breaking up, how much more of a hint do you need? She instead decided to console me and tell me I should be glad I am with someone way better now, and Simon is trash. That really pissed me off. I said F the high road, PS, and decided to unleash a petty revenge committee located in the depths of my anger. The dinner party. I told Cindy that I wanted to throw her and Paul a dinner with our closest friends, approximately 6 people, and it would be hosted at my now BFF's house. By the way, shout out to my BFF who moved in the shadows with me and restored my faith in true friendships. This dinner took place 2 weeks before the wedding. We sat everyone down, they ate, had some drinks, then I made my toast. I started by asking Cindy if she wanted to come clean now or if she preferred I do it for her. The look on her face was priceless. She knew what I was talking about 1,000%. However, not only do I move in the shadows, but I also move with receipts. So I invited Simon to join us via FaceTime while I made the confession announcement on her behalf. She tried to interrupt me and speak over me, but my BFF stopped her, and I made sure I spoke loud, fast, and clear. My only real regret about it was Paul learning of the multiple times Cindy cheated in front of everyone. I can only imagine the horror that might have been, but I knew if I told him separately, he would not have joined us that night. I later apologized to him. He forgave me and also thanked me for letting him know, although he wished it would have been in private. He is now happily married and has a beautiful wife and kids. As for Cindy, she spent the following 2 weeks begging me to say that I lied about everything so that Paul would go through with the wedding. Delusional much? Paul ghosted her, and she spent several weeks trying to find him by invading his mother's home unannounced. I have no idea what lies Cindy told Paul's mom because she contacted my husband to warn him that I was the city's biggest slut, and he should leave me. My husband only pissed her off by replying that he loved that about me because he was one too. Just an FYI, this wedding was going to be a simple backyard wedding. There were no large deposits lost other than the table and linen rental deposit. Paul's family was going to cook. I was doing hair, makeup, pre-wedding photos, and my BFF was bringing the DJ. Cindy bought herself an engagement ring and wedding dress, but lessons learned. I hope. Cindy and I never spoke again, and thankfully, we never have run into each other. All of her friends, including her first husband, took my side, and we all remain friends. I never spoke to Simon again, despite his continuous attempts to contact me until he passed a couple of years ago. I did not attend his funeral out of respect for myself and my husband, but I did visit his grave months later to pay my respects and say a prayer for him. I always wondered, am I the a-hole for going about things this way? No matter what the interweb's verdict is, I have zero regrets. Honestly, what you did was the most fitting response to a friend who clearly had no respect for you or your relationship. Cindy was playing a dangerous game, thinking she could cheat, lie, and betray you without any consequences, and you gave her the reality check she so desperately needed. You're definitely not the a-hole here, OP. It's understandable why Simon confessed and shook you, but let's be real. He was just trying to work his way back into your life, and he didn't deserve that chance. Honestly, it's kind of pathetic that he thought you'd be open to rekindling anything after that. Have you ever had a friend betray you in such a dramatic way? And how did you handle the situation? Did you confront them, or did you choose to walk away quietly? Up next, Employee of the Month. Fired from Walmart. Obligatory on mobile. Sorry for any formatting issues. About a year ago, I worked selling solar panel systems. This job required me to wear khakis and a blue polo while I was meeting customers. One particular day, after meeting with a homeowner, I had to stop by my local Walmart to get more pens and a notepad for my work bag. I pretty consistently got asked if I worked there by other customers, and I would help if I knew what they were after, but I always told them that I didn't work there, and they were always kind. So this fateful day, I grabbed my pens and paper and checked out in the self-checkout section. As I was leaving, I heard someone say behind me, "And just where do you think you're going?" Now, a little about me. I try to mind my own business as much as possible, and don't like to get wrapped up in other people's drama. When I hear outbursts like that in public, I assume it's not because of me. I also try to follow the rules as much as possible. In this case, I assumed it wasn't me because I paid for everything, so I continued in my car. Roughly 30 feet from my car, I hear again, "Hey, you, stop!" I do turn around on that one, because that's typically what you say to a thief. An employee who can only be described as a Karen is marching towards me, 8 different kinds of pissed off. She starts reaming into me about how I'm abandoning my shift and I'm not supposed to get off for another 3 hours. I'm standing there bewildered because I genuinely have no idea what she's talking about, and I try to let her know that I don't work there, but she won't let me get a word in. Eventually she says, "Forget it, you're fired." I waited for about 5 seconds and told her, "I don't work here. I've never worked here." She stared at me and muttered, "Sorry," and ran back inside. I'm still not sure what happened, but that's the tale of me being fired from a job I never worked at. Hope it brought you some joy. The update: I've been banned from that Walmart. The manager in the story apparently has a memory like an elephant, kind of looks like one too, and is still working there today. I went in to pick up a couple of things and return one thing for my wife. I'm waiting in the return line and the person in front of me is having some issue with the return, so the employee helping them calls for a manager. It's the same lady. Recognized her immediately, and as it turns out, she recognized me, kind of. She points at me and tells me that I'm not allowed to shop at this Walmart, and if I don't leave, she'll call the police. I asked why I was banned. She said she didn't remember, but she knew I was. So I left. My wife and I have been cackling over this for a couple of days and thought you'd find it funny as well. Final update. Short version to catch people up. I was fired from a Walmart that I didn't work at by a power-tripping manager because I apparently looked like someone who worked there. The final update is that recently my family moved to a new neighborhood around the corner from the Walmart. After meeting the new neighbors, I found out one worked at this Walmart. I told her the story because I still think it's hilarious, and she let me know that manager, let's name her Gertrude, was arrested and fired. Old Gertie apparently had a history of arbitrarily banning people like she did to me, but nobody really ever complained, so nothing ever got done. She was just shifted from department to department. One day late last year, she got a little too aggressive with an off-duty cop and tried to forcibly remove her from the store, which inevitably led to Gertrude punching the cop. She was arrested and finally fired. My neighbor and most of her coworkers have rejoiced. Karma can be a beautiful thing. Honestly, this is hilarious. She was so wrapped up in her own little bubble that she fired you, and you don't even work there. Imagine the hatred you must have for the world in order to do something like that, but you've got to laugh at the timing of it all. Karma works in mysterious ways, and it was long overdue for Gertrude. What do you make of this? Thank you for joining us today in the rLounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time.